Question 1. Consider an established organization that has implemented a business continuity management system, BCMS, in accordance with ISO 22313-2020. During a routine review of the BCMS, it is observed that while business continuity plans are updated annually, there is a noticeable disconnect between the BCMS activities and the strategic decision-making processes of the executive leadership. Furthermore, the assigned responsibilities for BCMS maintenance are spread across multiple departments without a clear overarching authority or accountability mechanism for the system's overall effectiveness. Which of the following governance practices would most effectively address this situation to ensure the BCMS remains integrated and capable of supporting organizational resilience as per the guidance? Option A. Establish a dedicated business continuity steering committee, chaired by a senior executive, with clear mandates to oversee BCMS strategy, review performance, ensure integration with organizational planning, and hold accountable those responsible for BCMS maintenance activities. Option B. Mandate that all department heads conduct an annual self-assessment of their departmental continuity plans and submit the results to the IT security manager for compilation. Option C. Implement a new software solution for documenting business continuity plans and tracking their review dates without altering the existing governance structure. Option D. Increase the frequency of business continuity awareness training for all employees, focusing on individual responsibilities during disruptions. Correct answer is A. Establish a dedicated business continuity steering committee, chaired by a senior executive, with clear mandates to oversee BCMS strategy, review performance, ensure integration with organizational planning, and hold accountable those responsible for BCMS maintenance activities. Explanation: the governance of a business continuity management system, BCMS, is intrinsically linked to its ongoing effectiveness and alignment with organizational objectives. ISO 22313-2020 emphasizes that the top management's commitment and involvement are paramount for establishing, maintaining, and improving the BCMS. This commitment is not merely symbolic. It translates into tangible actions that ensure the BCMS remains relevant and resourced. Specifically, the standard highlights the need for top management to ensure that the BCMS contributes to the organization's resilience. This is achieved through a framework of accountability and oversight. Without clear assignment of responsibilities, regular performance reviews, and integration into the overall organizational governance structure, the BCMS risks becoming a static document rather than a dynamic living system. The maintenance of the BCMS necessitates a proactive approach to identifying changes in the business environment, regulatory landscape, and the organization's own operations, and then adapting the BCMS accordingly. This includes reviewing and updating business continuity plans, conducting exercises and tests, and ensuring that personnel are adequately trained. The governance aspect ensures that these maintenance activities are prioritized, funded, and executed effectively, thereby maintaining the integrity and utility of the BCMS. The ultimate goal is to embed business continuity principles into the organizational culture and decision-making processes, which is a direct outcome of strong governance. Question 2. Consider a global financial services firm that operates data centers in 3 different continents and offers a wide array of investment banking, retail banking, and wealth management services. Recent regulatory directives in its primary market mandate robust business continuity for all critical financial operations, including payment processing and client account management. When defining the scope of its BCMS, according to ISO 22313-2020, which of the following approaches best reflects the standard's guidance on scope justification? Option A. Define the scope to encompass all services and locations, providing a general justification that maintaining overall operational resilience is paramount for a financial institution of its size and complexity. Option B. Focus the scope justification on the most profitable business lines, arguing that their continuity is essential for financial stability, and exclude services that contribute less to revenue, regardless of their criticality to regulatory compliance or stakeholder trust. Option C. Justify the scope by clearly delineating which specific business units, critical functions, e.g., trading platforms, payment gateways, client data management, and supporting infrastructure across all relevant locations are included, and explain how their disruption would impact the organization's ability to meet its objectives and comply with relevant regulations, while also noting any deliberate exclusions and their rationale. Option D. Justify the scope by focusing exclusively on the regulatory requirements for payment processing and client account management, excluding other services and locations not explicitly mentioned in the directives. The correct answer is D. Justify the scope by focusing exclusively on the regulatory requirements for payment processing and client account management, excluding other services and locations not explicitly mentioned in the directives. Explanation: ISO 22313, 2020 emphasizes that the scope of a business continuity management system, BCMS, must be clearly defined and justified. This definition dictates which parts of an organization, its activities, and its locations are covered by the BCMS. The justification for the scope is critical as it demonstrates the rationale behind the inclusions and exclusions, ensuring alignment with the organization's objectives, risks, and stakeholder expectations. Without a well-defined and justified scope, the effectiveness and applicability of the BCMS can be compromised. The standard requires that the scope statement should be documented and communicated. The justification should consider the organization's strategic goals, regulatory requirements, such as those pertaining to data protection or critical infrastructure, and the impact of potential disruptions on its ability to deliver products or services. For instance, if an organization's primary revenue stream is from online sales, the scope would likely encompass all IT infrastructure and processes supporting e-commerce, and the justification would highlight the criticality of these elements to business survival. Conversely, a support function that has readily available workarounds or minimal impact on core operations might be excluded, with the justification detailing these factors. The process of defining and justifying the scope is iterative and should be reviewed periodically to ensure continued relevance. Question 3. Consider a scenario where Ethelred Logistics experiences a catastrophic failure of its primary data center due to an unforeseen electrical surge. The organization's business continuity plan, BCP, has been developed in accordance with ISO 22313, 2020. During the initial hours of the disruption, which of the following best reflects the critical action required regarding personnel involvement for an effective BCMS response? Option A. Initiate a comprehensive training program for all employees on business continuity principles while the disruption is ongoing. Option B. Delegate all decision-making authority to the most senior executive present at the incident site, regardless of their specific role in the BCP. Option C. Ensure that all personnel understand their predefined roles and responsibilities as documented in the BCP, enabling immediate and coordinated action during the crisis. Option D. Promptly convene an emergency meeting of the entire organization to collectively decide on the immediate steps for business resumption. The correct answer is C. Ensure that all personnel understand their predefined roles and responsibilities as documented in the BCP, enabling immediate and coordinated action during the crisis. Explanation: ISO 22313, 2020 emphasizes the importance of clearly defining roles and responsibilities within a business continuity management system, BCMS, to ensure effective response and recovery during a disruption. Clause 6.3.2 concerning people mandates that an organization shall determine the necessary competence for personnel affecting the BCMS performance and ensure these individuals are competent on the basis of education, training, or experience. Furthermore, the standard, in Clause 7.2.1, awareness, requires that relevant personnel be made aware of the business continuity policy, their contribution to the effectiveness of the BCMS, and the implications of not conforming to BCMS requirements. When a significant disruption impacts critical business functions, such as the primary data center of Ethelred Logistics, a specialized entity dealing with time-sensitive freight, the immediate activation of the BCMS requires personnel to understand their pre-assigned roles. These roles are typically established during the business continuity planning process and documented in the BC plan. For instance, a designated incident commander will be responsible for overall strategic direction and decision-making, while a communications lead would manage internal and external stakeholder updates. A technical recovery team lead would oversee the restoration of IT systems. The effectiveness of the BCMS during such an event hinges on the clarity of these assigned duties, ensuring that individuals know precisely what actions they are empowered and expected to take without ambiguity. This clarity prevents delays, avoids duplication of effort, and ensures that all critical recovery activities are initiated promptly and coordinated effectively, aligning with the overall business continuity strategy and regulatory requirements for operational resilience. Question 4. A global logistics firm, Swift Ship Solutions, is undergoing a strategic review of its operational resilience capabilities. The Chief Executive Officer has mandated that business continuity planning be fully integrated into the company's long-term growth strategy, including market expansion and technology adoption, which fundamental aspect of the ISO 22313/2020 framework best addresses this directive to ensure business continuity is a core strategic consideration rather than a standalone operational concern. Option A. Embedding business continuity principles and objectives within the organization's strategic planning and governance structures. Option B. Establishing a dedicated business continuity team with exclusive responsibility for incident response planning and execution. Option C. Conducting periodic business impact analyses without explicitly linking the findings to strategic decision-making processes. Option D. Focusing solely on the development of detailed disaster recovery plans for critical IT infrastructure. The correct answer is A. Embedding business continuity principles and objectives within the organization's strategic planning and governance structures. Explanation. The core of ISO 22313/2020 is the establishment and maintenance of a robust business continuity management system, BCMS. A critical element of this framework is the integration of business continuity considerations into the organization's strategic planning and governance processes. This ensures that business continuity is not an isolated function, but is embedded within the overall direction and operational management of the organization. Clause 4.3 of ISO 22313/2020, understanding the needs and expectations of interested parties, and Clause 5.3, leadership and commitment, are foundational. These clauses emphasize the necessity of top management's active involvement and the alignment of BCMS objectives with the organization's strategic goals. Furthermore, Clause 6.1.3 Business Continuity Policy mandates that the policy be communicated and understood, reflecting the organization's commitment to managing disruptive incidents. The integration of business continuity into strategic decision-making, risk management frameworks, and operational processes, as outlined in Clause 5.2, Policy, and Clause 6.2, Business Continuity Objectives and Planning to Achieve Them, is paramount. This holistic approach, where business continuity is a strategic imperative rather than a tactical response, ensures resilience across the entire organization. Question 5. A multinational logistics firm, operating under stringent regulatory requirements from the International Maritime Organization, IMO, concerning cargo tracking and customs clearance, has identified its primary cargo manifest processing system as a critical business function. The business impact analysis indicates a maximum tolerable downtime of 15 minutes and a maximum tolerable data loss of 5 minutes for this system. Given the significant financial penalties and reputational damage associated with prolonged outages, the firm is evaluating continuity strategies. Which of the following strategy selections best aligns with the principles of feasibility and cost-effectiveness for this critical function, considering the identified recovery time objective RTO and recovery point objective RPO? Option A. Implementing a fully replicated hot site with continuous data synchronization to ensure near-instantaneous failover and minimal data loss. Option B. Employing a cold site strategy that involves procuring and setting up hardware after an incident, with data restored from weekly tape backups. Option C. Establishing a reciprocal agreement with a competitor for mutual support during disruptions, relying on shared infrastructure. Option D. Utilizing a warm site with daily data backups, requiring manual intervention for system restoration and data recovery. The correct answer is A. Implementing a fully replicated hot site with continuous data synchronization to ensure near-instantaneous failover and minimal data loss. Explanation. When selecting business continuity strategies, an organization must balance the criticality of a business function with the resources available to implement and maintain a recovery solution. ISO 2020 guidance emphasizes the need for strategies to be both feasible and cost-effective. Feasibility considers the technical, operational, and organizational capacity to implement and sustain the strategy. Cost-effectiveness involves evaluating the total cost of ownership, including initial investment, ongoing maintenance, and potential benefits realized through reduced disruption. For critical function with a very short required recovery time objective (RTO) and a high recovery point objective (RPO), a strategy like a fully replicated hot site is often the most technically feasible and effective in meeting stringent recovery requirements, despite its higher cost. This approach minimizes downtime and data loss, directly addressing the critical nature of the function. Other strategies, such as cold sites or reciprocal agreements, may be less costly, but are unlikely to meet the aggressive recovery targets for highly critical operations, making them less suitable in this context. The decision hinges on aligning the strategy's capabilities with the defined business impact analysis outcomes and the organization's risk appetite, ensuring that the chosen strategy provides the necessary resilience without incurring undue financial burden for less critical activities. The selection process involves a thorough understanding of the trade-offs between recovery time, data loss, cost, and operational complexity. Question 6. Consider an organization that has identified a significant dependency on a single cloud service provider for its primary customer relationship management (CRM) system. A recent geopolitical event has led to concerns about the stability of this provider's operations in a key geographical region. According to the principles outlined in ISO 22313/2020, what is the most appropriate overarching objective for the organization's business continuity management system in this specific scenario? Option A. To develop a comprehensive communication plan for informing customers about potential service interruptions due to the geopolitical event. Option B. To immediately migrate all CRM data to a secondary, on-premises infrastructure to eliminate external dependencies. Option C. To ensure the continued availability of critical customer data and the ability to service customer inquiries at a predefined acceptable level, irrespective of the primary cloud provider's operational status. Option D. To lobby the cloud service provider for enhanced service level agreements and guarantees against regional disruptions. Correct answer is C. To ensure the continued availability of critical customer data and the ability to service customer inquiries at a predefined acceptable level, irrespective of the primary cloud provider's operational status. Explanation. The fundamental principle of business continuity management, BCM, is to ensure that an organization can continue to deliver its products and services at acceptable predefined levels following a disruptive incident. ISO 22313/2020 emphasizes a structured approach to BCM, which involves understanding the organization's context, identifying potential threats, and developing strategies to mitigate their impact. A key aspect of this is the establishment of clear objectives for business continuity, which are directly linked to the organization's overall strategic goals and operational requirements. These objectives guide the development of plans, procedures, and capabilities necessary to maintain critical functions. For instance, if an organization's strategic goal is to maintain customer trust during a crisis, a BCM objective might be to restore essential customer service operations within a specified time frame, ensuring minimal disruption to clients. This objective is not merely a procedural step, but a strategic imperative that informs the entire BCM lifecycle, from risk assessment to exercising and review. The document stresses that BCM is an ongoing process, not a one-time project, and its effectiveness is measured by its ability to support the organization's resilience and its capacity to adapt to changing circumstances and threats. Therefore, the core of business continuity is about maintaining operational capability and strategic objectives through proactive planning and effective response. Question 7. An international logistics firm, SwiftShip Global, operating across multiple jurisdictions with varying data privacy regulations, is enhancing its business continuity management system, BCMS, in accordance with ISO 22313/2020. To ensure the BCMS can effectively respond to and recover from a significant cyber attack that compromises customer data, what fundamental resource category, beyond just skilled personnel and financial allocation, must SwiftShip Global prioritize to address the specific regulatory implications of such an incident? Option A. The procurement of specialized insurance policies that cover all potential financial losses stemming from business interruption and data breaches, regardless of the root cause. Option B. Advanced physical security measures for all data centers, irrespective of their geographic location or the data they store, to prevent unauthorized access during a crisis. Option C. Robust information and knowledge management capabilities, ensuring secure access to critical data, regulatory compliance documentation, and incident response playbooks that adhere to all applicable data protection laws. Option D. Extensive public relations and crisis communication training for all executive leadership, focusing solely on external messaging during a widespread business disruption. The correct answer is C. Robust information and knowledge management capabilities, ensuring secure access to critical data, regulatory compliance documentation, and incident response playbooks that adhere to all applicable data protection laws. Explanation: the establishment, implementation, maintenance, and continual improvement of a business continuity management system, BCMS, as outlined in ISO 22313, 2020, requires the organization to determine and provide the necessary resources. These resources encompass human resources, including competent personnel with appropriate skills and training, and infrastructure, which includes facilities, equipment, and technology. Financial resources are also critical to support BCMS activities, such as training, exercises, plan development, and technology investments. Furthermore, information and knowledge management are essential, ensuring that relevant documentation, procedures, and lessons learned are accessible and utilized. The organization must also consider the regulatory environment, such as data protection laws like GDPR or industry-specific regulations, which may dictate certain resource requirements or capabilities to ensure compliance during disruptive events. The allocation of these resources must be aligned with the BCMS objectives and the organization's risk appetite, ensuring that the BCMS can effectively prevent, prepare for, respond to, and recover from disruptions. Question 8. A multinational logistics firm, Global Freight Solutions, is implementing its Business Continuity Management System, BCMS, in compliance with ISO 22313-2020. The organization has identified key personnel responsible for managing critical recovery operations during a widespread cyber attack that cripples their primary communication networks. To ensure these individuals are capable of executing their assigned roles effectively, which of the following approaches best aligns with the standard's guidance on demonstrating personnel competence for BCMS roles? Option A. Requiring all personnel to complete a generic online awareness course on business continuity principles once every 5 years, regardless of their specific role or level of responsibility within the BCMS. Option B. Documenting the job descriptions of personnel involved in BCMS activities without any further verification of their practical skills or knowledge relevant to disruption management. Option C. Relying solely on the formal educational degrees and professional certifications of the identified personnel, assuming these credentials guarantee immediate applicability to specific BCMS tasks. Option D. Conducting periodic, scenario-based simulations that require the responsible personnel to actively participate and demonstrate their understanding of specific recovery procedures and decision-making protocols. Correct answer is D. Conducting periodic, scenario-based simulations that require the responsible personnel to actively participate and demonstrate their understanding of specific recovery procedures and decision-making protocols. Explanation: ISO 22313, 2020, under Clause 7.2, emphasizes the importance of ensuring personnel are competent for their roles within the Business Continuity Management System, BCMS. Competence is defined as the demonstrated ability to apply knowledge and skills to achieve intended results. For a BCMS, this means individuals must understand their specific responsibilities during a disruption, know how to execute their assigned tasks, and be aware of the overall BCMS objectives. Evaluating competence involves assessing both existing qualifications and the effectiveness of any training or development provided. The standard suggests methods like performance reviews, skill assessments, and feedback mechanisms to verify that personnel can competently perform their business continuity duties. The goal is to ensure that the BCMS can be effectively activated and managed when needed, minimizing impact and facilitating recovery. This directly relates to the overall resilience of the organization. Question 9. An organization has set a strategic objective to diversify its product portfolio by acquiring and integrating 3 smaller technology firms operating in emerging markets over the next 5 years. Considering the guidance within ISO 22313/2020 on aligning business continuity objectives with strategic goals, which of the following would represent the most effective set of business continuity objectives to support this strategic aim? Option A. Establish and test robust continuity plans for the critical functions of each acquired firm, focusing on the specific regulatory environments and supply chain dependencies of their respective emerging markets, and ensure integration plans address potential disruption scenarios impacting cross-border operations. Option B. Implement a business continuity training program for all employees, emphasizing general awareness of potential threats without tailoring the content to the specific risks associated with the emerging markets or the integration process. Option C. Develop a comprehensive disaster recovery plan for the parent company's headquarters, ensuring all IT systems are backed up and can be restored within 24 hours, regardless of the operational impact on the newly acquired entities. Option D. Conduct a single, organization-wide business impact analysis, BIA, for the combined entity, focusing solely on financial losses, and set a single recovery time objective, RTO, for all critical business processes across all locations. The correct answer is A. Establish and test robust continuity plans for the critical functions of each acquired firm, focusing on the specific regulatory environments and supply chain dependencies of their respective emerging markets, and ensure integration plans address potential disruption scenarios impacting cross-border operations. Explanation: ISO 22313/2020 emphasizes that business continuity objectives must be derived from and aligned with the organization's overall strategic goals and policy. This alignment ensures that business continuity efforts directly support the organization's mission, vision, and long-term aspirations, rather than operating in isolation. When an organization's strategic goal is to expand into new international markets, its business continuity objectives should reflect this by focusing on the resilience of operations in those specific regions, the ability to manage cross-border disruptions, and the continuity of supply chains that support international trade. This includes considering geopolitical risks, currency fluctuations, and differing regulatory environments in the target markets. For instance, a strategic objective to increase market share by 15% in Southeast Asia within 3 years would necessitate business continuity objectives that address the potential impact of natural disasters prevalent in the region, disruptions to regional logistics networks, and the availability of critical resources in those locations. The process involves understanding the strategic direction, identifying the critical activities that support it, and then establishing objectives for business continuity that ensure these activities can continue or be resumed rapidly, thereby safeguarding the achievement of the strategic goal. This ensures that the investment in business continuity management is directly contributing to the organization's success and competitive advantage. Question 10. Consider a scenario where an organization's primary data center and all cloud-based services are rendered inoperable due to a sophisticated ransomware attack. The Business Continuity Plan, BCP, designates an alternate physical location for critical operations and outlines manual data processing procedures. During a simulation of this event, which of the following outcomes would most strongly indicate a successful validation of the BCP's resilience and recovery capabilities, in line with ISO 22313/2020 guidance on simulating disruption scenarios? Option A. IT personnel are able to restore the primary data center to full operational capacity within 24 hours, bypassing the need to activate the alternate site or manual procedures. Option B. A comprehensive report is generated detailing the attack vector and the vulnerabilities exploited, which is then submitted to regulatory bodies for review and guidance on future security measures. Option C. The crisis management team successfully initiates communication with key stakeholders using predefined alternative channels, and essential business functions are restored at the alternate site within the defined recovery time objective, RTO, using manual processes and recovered data from offline backups. Option D. The simulation reveals that the majority of employees can access critical systems from their home networks, demonstrating the effectiveness of remote work capabilities, even though essential business functions are significantly degraded. The correct answer is C. The crisis management team successfully initiates communication with key stakeholders using predefined alternative channels, and essential business functions are restored at the alternate site within the defined recovery time objective, RTO, using manual processes and recovered data from offline backups. Explanation: the core principle behind effective business continuity simulation is to rigorously test the resilience and responsiveness of the established business continuity plan, BCP, under a variety of plausible disruptive conditions. ISO 22313, 2020 emphasizes that simulations should be designed to identify gaps, validate assumptions, and refine procedures. When considering a simulation involving a widespread cyber attack that cripples critical IT infrastructure and communication channels, the primary objective is to assess the organization's ability to maintain essential functions and recover operations using alternative methods. This involves evaluating the effectiveness of manual workarounds, the readiness of pre-identified alternate sites, the clarity of communication protocols for unaffected personnel, and the efficacy of the incident response team's decision-making under extreme pressure. The simulation must go beyond simply identifying the failure. It must actively engage the participants in executing recovery actions, thereby providing tangible data on response times, resource availability, and the overall success of the recovery strategy. Focusing on the ability to restore core services, even at a reduced capacity, and testing the activation of the crisis management team are paramount. The simulation should also assess the organization's compliance with relevant data protection regulations, such as GDPR or CCPA, by examining how sensitive information is handled during the disruption and recovery phases, ensuring that privacy is maintained. Question 11. When an organization seeks to integrate its business continuity management system, BCMS, aligned with ISO 22313, 2020, with an existing information security management system, ISMS, conforming to ISO 27001, what is the most effective strategic approach to achieve synergy and avoid redundant efforts, considering the distinct yet complementary scopes of each standard? Option A. Create separate parallel processes for risk assessment and incident management within each system, with a limited formal mechanism for information sharing to maintain distinct operational focuses. Option B. Focus solely on the operational recovery aspects of the BCMS, treating information security as a separate, isolated domain managed independently to ensure specialized expertise is not diluted. Option C. Develop a unified risk management framework that identifies and assesses risks relevant to both business continuity and information security, establishing clear linkages between identified threats, vulnerabilities, impacts, and the respective management system controls and continuity strategies. Option D. Prioritize the implementation of ISO 27001, controls that directly support critical business functions identified in the BCMS, assuming that information security inherently covers all business continuity needs. The correct answer is C. Develop a unified risk management framework that identifies and assesses risks relevant to both business continuity and information security, establishing clear linkages between identified threats, vulnerabilities, impacts, and the respective management system controls and continuity strategies. Explanation: ISO 22313, 2020, which provides guidance on business continuity management systems, BCMS, emphasizes the integration and synergy between a BCMS and other established management systems. When considering integration with an information security management system, ISMS, conforming to ISO 27001, the primary objective is to leverage common elements and principles to achieve efficiency and effectiveness. Both standards require risk assessment, policy development, objective setting, and the implementation of controls. ISO 22313 focuses on the organization's ability to continue operations following a disruption, encompassing a broader scope of potential disruptions than just information security threats. ISO 27001, conversely, is specifically concerned with the protection of information assets, The integration aims to avoid duplication of effort and to ensure a holistic approach to resilience. For instance, a risk assessment conducted for the BCMS can inform the threat landscape for the ISMS, and vice versa. Similarly, incident response plans developed under ISO 27001 can be a component of the overall business continuity plan required by ISO 22313. The common clauses in Annex SL, such as context of the organization, leadership, planning, support, operation, performance evaluation, and improvement, facilitate this integration. Therefore, the most effective approach to integrating a BCMS with an ISMS involves identifying and mapping shared processes, risks, and controls, and then establishing clear interfaces and communication channels between the two management systems. This ensures that information security considerations are embedded within the business continuity framework, and that business continuity requirements are addressed within the information security context, leading to a more robust and cohesive resilience strategy. The alignment of risk appetite and tolerance across both systems is also a critical factor for successful integration. Question 12. Consider an organization that has developed a comprehensive business continuity plan following ISO 22313, 2020. During a severe regional power outage that also disrupts cellular networks, the organization needs to inform its employees, key suppliers, and regulatory bodies about the operational status and expected recovery timelines. Which of the following approaches best aligns with the guidance in ISO 22313, 2020 for establishing and utilizing communication channels in such a scenario? Option A. Prioritize the use of the organization's primary email system and internal intranet, supplemented by pre-registered personal mobile numbers for critical personnel. Option B. Rely exclusively on social media platforms and public broadcast announcements to disseminate information to all stakeholder groups simultaneously. Option C. Assume that all stakeholders will automatically access the organization's website once power is restored and disseminate information through that channel only. Option D. Leverage a multi-channel communication strategy including an emergency notification system with SMS capabilities, a dedicated crisis hotline, and predefined liaison officers for direct contact with suppliers and regulators. The correct answer is A. Prioritize the use of the organization's primary email system and internal intranet, supplemented by pre-registered personal mobile numbers for critical personnel. Explanation: ISO 22313, 2020 emphasizes the critical role of communication in business continuity. Clause 8.4.2 specifically addresses the establishment of communication channels. The standard posits that an organization should identify its key stakeholders, both internal and external, and determine their information needs during a disruption. This involves defining what information needs to be communicated, to whom, by whom, and through what channels. The selection of communication channels must consider their reliability, accessibility, and effectiveness in reaching the intended audience under various disruptive scenarios. For instance, while email might be a primary channel, its efficacy can be compromised during widespread network outages. Therefore, alternative channels such as emergency notification systems, designated public announcement systems, or even prearranged personal contact methods are essential to ensure that critical information regarding business continuity status, response actions, and recovery progress is disseminated effectively. The objective is to maintain situational awareness, manage expectations, and coordinate response efforts across all affected parties, thereby supporting the overall resilience of the organization. The standard also highlights the importance of testing these communication channels as part of the business continuity program to ensure their readiness and effectiveness when needed. Question 13. During a business impact analysis for a financial services firm operating under stringent regulatory requirements like those influenced by GDPR and SOX, which of the following approaches most accurately reflects the critical task of identifying dependencies and interdependencies for a core transaction processing system, considering both internal and external factors? Option A. Documenting all IT assets within the organization, regardless of their criticality to the transaction processing system, to ensure a comprehensive inventory of potential failure points. Option B. Prioritizing the recovery of non-critical support functions before addressing the core transaction processing system to ensure a broad organizational resilience. Option C. Mapping the direct and indirect resource requirements for the transaction processing system, including personnel, IT infrastructure, data, and key third-party service providers, and analyzing how disruptions to any of these would cascade to impact the system's continuity. Option D. Focusing solely on the immediate upstream dependencies of the transaction processing system, such as the primary data center, without considering downstream impacts on dependent business units or external stakeholders. The correct answer is C. Mapping the direct and indirect resource requirements for the transaction processing system, including personnel, IT infrastructure, data, and key third-party service providers, and analyzing how disruptions to any of these would cascade to impact the system's continuity. Explanation: the fundamental principle of identifying dependencies and interdependencies within a business continuity management system, BCMS, under ISO 22313/2020 is to understand how critical activities rely on specific resources, other activities, or external entities. This process is crucial for comprehending the potential ripple effects of disruptions. When determining these relationships, the focus should be on the critical business functions and the resources that directly support them. This involves mapping out not only direct dependencies, e.g., a critical function requires a specific IT system, but also indirect or cascading dependencies, e.g., that its system relies on a particular power supply, which in turn depends on a specific utility provider. The goal is to build a comprehensive picture of what is essential for the continued operation of critical activities. This understanding informs the development of appropriate business continuity strategies and ensures that recovery efforts address the most vulnerable points in the operational chain. It is not merely about listing resources, but understanding the sequence and nature of their support. For instance, if a critical customer service function relies on a CRM system, and that CRM system relies on a specific cloud hosting provider, then the dependency chain includes the CRM, the cloud provider, and the underlying infrastructure of that provider. Understanding these layers helps in assessing the potential impact of a failure at any point in the chain, and in developing robust recovery plans that account for these interconnections. Question 14. When implementing a business continuity management system in accordance with ISO 22313/2020, what is the primary objective of establishing stringent controls over the creation, revision, and distribution of documented information, particularly concerning continuity plans and supporting procedures? Option A. To guarantee the integrity, availability, and appropriate access to accurate and current business continuity information, thereby supporting effective response and recovery efforts. Option B. To maintain a historical archive of all previous iterations of BCMS documents, regardless of their current applicability or approval status. Option C. To ensure that all personnel have unrestricted access to the latest approved versions of all BCMS documentation at all times. Option D. To facilitate the rapid dissemination of all BCMS-related updates to external stakeholders without prior internal review. The correct answer is C. To ensure that all personnel have unrestricted access to the latest approved versions of all BCMS documentation at all times. Explanation: ISO 22313/2020, the guidance standard for business continuity management systems, BCMS, emphasizes the controlled management of documented information. This control is crucial for ensuring the integrity, availability, and usability of critical business continuity documentation. Clause 7.5 of ISO 22313/2020, which aligns with similar requirements in ISO 22301/2019, outlines the necessary controls. These controls encompass the identification, creation, updating, and access to documented information. For documented information to be effectively controlled, it must be identifiable, reviewable, and accessible to those who need it, when they need it. This includes establishing processes for version control to prevent the use of obsolete information, and to ensure that the most current and approved versions are readily available. Furthermore, access controls are vital to protect sensitive business continuity plans and related data from unauthorized disclosure or modification, thereby maintaining confidentiality and operational security. The standard requires that documented information be protected from loss, damage, and degradation. This comprehensive approach to documented information management underpins the overall effectiveness and reliability of the BCMS by ensuring that accurate and relevant information is consistently available to support business continuity activities. Question 15. Consider an organization that provides essential digital services to a government agency. The agency, bound by national data protection laws and public service continuity mandates, expects the organization to maintain uninterrupted service availability and demonstrate robust data recovery capabilities. Simultaneously, the organization's primary software vendor, whose product is integral to its operations, has contractual obligations for service-level agreements, SLAs, that include specific response times for critical system failures. In this context, which of the following actions most accurately reflects the ISO 22313, 2020 guidance on understanding the needs and expectations of interested parties for business continuity? Option A. Systematically identifying the government agency and the software vendor as interested parties, documenting their specific requirements related to service continuity, data protection, and contractual SLAs, and integrating these into the BCMS scope and objectives. Option B. Engaging in ad hoc discussions with key clients about their general satisfaction levels without formal documentation of specific continuity requirements. Option C. Relying solely on the organization's existing risk assessment framework to infer the needs of interested parties without direct engagement or explicit requirement gathering. Option D. Primarily focusing on the organization's internal IT department's expectations for system uptime, as they are most directly involved in operational recovery. The correct answer is A. Systematically identifying the government agency and the software vendor as interested parties, documenting their specific requirements related to service continuity, data protection, and contractual SLAs, and integrating these into the BCMS scope and objectives. Explanation. The core principle of understanding interested parties' needs and expectations within ISO 22313, 2020 involves identifying those parties and determining their relevant requirements and expectations regarding business continuity. This is not a static process but an ongoing one, necessitating a structured approach to information gathering and analysis. The standard emphasizes that these needs and expectations can stem from various sources, including legal and regulatory obligations, contractual agreements, and stakeholder perceptions. For instance, a critical supplier might expect timely notification of disruptions and assurance of recovery timelines, while a regulatory body might mandate specific reporting during a business continuity event. Understanding these diverse requirements is fundamental to establishing the scope and objectives of the Business Continuity Management System, BCMS, and ensuring its effectiveness in managing disruptions. It directly informs the development of appropriate business continuity strategies and plans that align with organizational resilience goals and external stakeholder commitments. The process involves not just identifying who the interested parties are, but also actively seeking to comprehend what they consider important in the context of the organization's ability to continue its operations during and after disruptive incidents. Question 16. A financial services firm, operating under strict regulatory requirements for data integrity and transaction processing continuity, has identified its core customer onboarding process as a critical activity. This process has a maximum tolerable period of disruption, MTPD, of 8 hours, and a recovery time objective, RTO, of 3 hours. The firm's risk assessment indicates a high likelihood of localized IT infrastructure failures, e.g., server hardware, local network, and a moderate likelihood of extended regional power outages affecting its primary data center. Given these parameters and the need to comply with regulations like GDPR regarding data availability and processing, which strategic approach would most effectively address the continuity requirements for this critical activity? Option A. Establishing a comprehensive manual workaround procedure that relies on paper-based records and staff redeployment for critical onboarding tasks. Option B. Utilizing a cold site recovery solution that requires significant hardware setup and data restoration from periodic backups. Option C. Developing a strategy focused on increasing the resilience of individual components within the primary data center without establishing an alternate processing location. Option D. Implementing a hot site recovery solution with real-time data replication and redundant network links to a geographically diverse secondary data center. The correct answer is D. Implementing a hot site recovery solution with real-time data replication and redundant network links to a geographically diverse secondary data center. Explanation. The core principle of developing business continuity strategies is to align the chosen strategies with the organization's risk appetite and the criticality of its activities. ISO 22313, 2020 emphasizes that strategies must be capable of achieving the defined recovery objectives, such as the maximum tolerable period of disruption, MTPD, and the recovery time objective, RTO, for critical business functions. Furthermore, the chosen strategies must be practical, cost-effective, and feasible within the organization's operational and resource constraints. Considering a hypothetical scenario where a critical financial transaction processing system has an MTPD of 4 hours and an RTO of 2 hours, and the organization faces a moderate risk of a prolonged power outage but a high risk of a localized network failure, strategy involving redundant data centers with active-active replication would be most appropriate. This approach directly addresses the low RTO and MTPD by ensuring near-instantaneous failover and minimal data loss. It also mitigates the risk of network failure through diverse connectivity and redundant infrastructure. Other strategies, such as manual workarounds or deferred processing, would likely exceed the RTO and MTPD, failing to meet the recovery objectives for this critical activity. The selection process must also consider the financial investment required for implementation and ongoing maintenance, ensuring it aligns with the organization's risk tolerance and available budget, thereby demonstrating a balanced approach to risk mitigation and recovery capability. Question 17. Consider a scenario where an organization's primary IT infrastructure, including email and internal messaging systems, is rendered completely inaccessible due to a sophisticated ransomware attack. The organization is subject to the European Union's General Data Protection Regulation, GDPR, which mandates timely notification of data breaches to supervisory authorities. Which of the following communication protocols would be most critical to maintain or rapidly re-establish to ensure compliance with regulatory obligations and continued operational awareness during such a severe disruption? Option A. Real-time social media broadcasting for broad customer engagement and brand reputation management. Option B. Public relations press release distribution via standard unsecured Internet protocols. Option C. Internal file sharing protocols for collaborative document editing among recovery teams. Option D. Secure, out-of-band communication channels for regulatory reporting and emergency personnel contact. The correct answer is D. Secure, out-of-band communication channels for regulatory reporting and emergency personnel contact. Explanation. The question probes the understanding of critical communication protocols during a business disruption, specifically focusing on the principles outlined in ISO 22313, 2020. The standard emphasizes the need for a robust communication plan that addresses various stakeholders and scenarios. During a significant incident, such as a cyber attack that renders primary communication channels inoperable, an organization must have predefined alternative methods to ensure continuity of essential communications. These methods should be resilient and capable of reaching designated recipients with critical information. The ability to maintain communication with regulatory bodies, such as data protection authorities, e.g., under GDPR or similar privacy regulations, and emergency services is paramount. Furthermore, internal communication to employees regarding safety, operational status, and next steps, as well as external communication to customers and suppliers about service impacts and recovery efforts, are vital. The chosen protocol must facilitate timely and accurate dissemination of information to these diverse groups, often requiring multiple redundant channels. The core principle is to ensure that essential communication functions can be maintained or rapidly restored, even when faced with the failure of standard infrastructure. This involves identifying critical communication needs and establishing communication strategies that are independent of the primary operational systems that may be compromised. Question 18. A multinational logistics firm, Swift Flow Couriers, operating across diverse geopolitical regions and subject to varying national data protection laws, e.g., GDPR in Europe, CCPA in California, is in the process of establishing its Business Continuity Management System, BCMS, in alignment with ISO 22313-2020. Considering the organization's context, which of the following actions would most effectively demonstrate a thorough understanding of relevant external issues that could impact its BCMS effectiveness and compliance? Option A. Developing a communication strategy to inform employees about the importance of business continuity and their roles during a crisis. Option B. Conducting a comprehensive review of all applicable international and national data privacy regulations and cross-referencing them with the organization's data handling procedures and critical business functions to identify potential compliance gaps and recovery implications. Option C. Engaging in a series of workshops with key stakeholders to define the organization's risk appetite and tolerance levels for operational disruptions. Option D. Performing a detailed assessment of the company's internal IT infrastructure vulnerabilities and developing a robust disaster recovery plan for its primary data centers. Correct answer is B. Conducting a comprehensive review of all applicable international and national data privacy regulations and cross-referencing them with the organization's data handling procedures and critical business functions to identify potential compliance gaps and recovery implications. Explanation: the process of understanding the organization and its context, as outlined in ISO 22313-2020, is foundational to establishing an effective business continuity management system, BCMS. This involves identifying external and internal issues that are relevant to the organization's purpose and its strategic direction, and that affect its ability to achieve the intended outcomes of its BCMS. External issues can include legal, technological, competitive, market, cultural, social, and economic environments. Internal issues relate to the organization's governance, culture, knowledge, capabilities, processes, and information systems. The organization must determine which of these issues are relevant and how they can impact its ability to plan, implement, maintain, and continually improve its BCMS. This understanding informs the scope and objectives of the BCMS and helps in identifying potential threats and vulnerabilities that could disrupt operations. For instance, a new data privacy regulation, external issue, might necessitate changes in how customer data is handled during a disruption, directly impacting recovery strategies and the overall resilience of the organization. Similarly, internal changes in workforce structure or the adoption of new technologies could introduce new risks that need to be addressed within the BCMS framework. The commitment to understanding these contextual factors ensures that the BCMS is aligned with the organization's overall strategic goals and operational realities, making it more robust and responsive to potential disruptions. Question 19. When establishing a business continuity management system, BCMS, in accordance with ISO 22313-2020, how should the findings from a business impact analysis, BIA, specifically influence the subsequent risk assessment process to ensure effective mitigation strategies are developed for critical organizational functions? Option A. The BIA should focus solely on the financial impact of disruptions, while the risk assessment should concentrate on operational impacts, with no direct linkage required between their findings. Option B. The risk assessment should be completed before the BIA, allowing it to identify potential threats that the BIA can then quantify in terms of business impact without regard to criticality. Option C. The risk assessment should independently identify all potential threats and vulnerabilities, with the BIA serving only as a supplementary document to validate existing risk mitigation plans. Option D. The BIA's identification of critical functions and their associated recovery time, objectives, RTO, and recovery point objectives, RPO, must directly inform the prioritization of threats and vulnerabilities examined during the risk assessment. Correct answer is D. The BIA's identification of critical functions and their associated recovery time objectives, RTO, and recovery point objectives, RPO, must directly inform the prioritization of threats and vulnerabilities examined during the risk assessment. Explanation: the core principle of a business continuity management system, BCMS, as outlined in ISO 22313. 2020 is to ensure an organization's ability to continue delivering products and services at acceptable predefined levels following a disruptive incident. This involves a structured approach to understanding potential threats, assessing their impact, and developing strategies to mitigate those impacts. A key aspect of this is the relationship between business impact analysis, BIA, and risk assessment. The BIA identifies critical business functions and the impacts of their disruption over time, establishing recovery time objectives, RTO, and recovery point objectives, RPO. Risk assessment, conversely, identifies potential threats and vulnerabilities that could cause these disruptions and evaluates the likelihood and impact of these threats occurring. While BIA focuses on the what happens if and how quickly we need to recover, risk assessment focuses on the what could cause it and how likely is it. Therefore, the integration of both processes is crucial for developing effective business continuity strategies. The BIA informs the risk assessment by highlighting which functions and processes are most critical and thus require the most robust risk mitigation. For instance, if a BIA identifies a critical function with a very short RTO, the risk assessment must prioritize threats that could impact that function within that timeframe. The ISO 22313 2020 guidance emphasizes this interconnectedness, stating that the outcomes of the BIA should be used to inform the risk assessment process, ensuring that mitigation efforts are focused on the most significant threats to the most critical business activities. Without this linkage, risk mitigation efforts might be misdirected, addressing low-impact threats to non-critical functions, while neglecting high-impact threats to essential operations. Question 20. Consider a scenario where a critical manufacturing facility experiences a sudden and severe electrical grid failure, impacting production lines and essential support systems. The organization has a BCMS aligned with ISO 22313, 2020. Which of the following best describes the primary responsibility of the designated recovery coordinator role during the initial phase of this disruption, as guided by the principles of the standard? Option A. To oversee the immediate activation of predefined recovery procedures for critical production lines and coordinate the deployment of backup power systems and essential personnel to resume operations within the established RTO. Option B. To conduct a comprehensive post-incident analysis to identify the root cause of the electrical failure and recommend long-term infrastructure improvements to prevent recurrence. Option C. To assess the financial implications of the downtime and initiate insurance claims processing for any business interruption losses incurred. Option D. To manage all external communications, including press releases and updates to regulatory bodies, regarding the impact of the disruption on business operations and customer service. The correct answer is A. To oversee the immediate activation of predefined recovery procedures for critical production lines and coordinate the deployment of backup power systems and essential personnel to resume operations within the established RTO. Explanation: ISO 22313, 2020 emphasizes that during a disruption, the Business Continuity Management System, BCMS, requires clearly defined roles and responsibilities to ensure effective and coordinated response and recovery activities. Clause 8.2.3, Communication, and Clause 8.3.1, Response and Recovery are particularly relevant. The standard advocates for a hierarchical structure where a designated incident management team, IMT, or crisis management team, CMT, assumes overall command. Within this structure, specific individuals or teams are assigned tasks such as assessing the impact of the disruption, activating relevant business continuity plans, BCP, coordinating communication with stakeholders, internal and external, including regulatory bodies if applicable, such as data protection authorities under GDPR if personal data is affected, managing resources, and executing recovery strategies. The effectiveness of the BCMS hinges on these defined roles being understood and executable by the assigned personnel, ensuring that the organization can maintain or rapidly restore critical business functions within predefined recovery time objectives, RTO, and recovery point objectives, RPO. The clarity of these assignments prevents confusion and delays, which are critical during a high-pressure event. Question 21. Consider a scenario where a regional telecommunications provider, ConnectAll, is responding to a widespread network outage caused by a severe weather event. Their business continuity plan, BCP, requires immediate notification of critical infrastructure partners and regulatory oversight bodies. According to ISO 22313, 2020, what is the primary purpose of ensuring that ConnectAll's documented information includes up-to-date contact details for these external entities during such an incident? Option A, to facilitate timely and coordinated communication for effective incident response and recovery efforts. Option B, to enable the immediate redirection of customer service inquiries to alternative communication channels. Option C, to provide a comprehensive list for post-incident legal and compliance audits. Option D, to serve as a historical record for evaluating the performance of external service providers. Correct answer is A, to facilitate timely and coordinated communication for effective incident response and recovery efforts. Explanation: ISO 22313, 2020 emphasizes the critical need for accurate and up-to-date contact information for all relevant parties involved in business continuity management. This includes internal personnel responsible for executing business continuity plans, BCP, as well as external stakeholders such as critical suppliers, regulatory bodies, and emergency services. The standard in Clause 6.3.2 specifies that an organization shall establish, implement, and maintain documented information that includes contact details for key personnel and stakeholders. This documented information is essential for effective communication during disruptive incidents, enabling swift coordination and response. The purpose is to ensure that during a crisis, the right individuals and entities can be reached promptly to initiate recovery activities, provide necessary information, and manage the overall response. Without this, the activation and execution of BCPs can be significantly delayed or even rendered ineffective, potentially leading to greater impact and prolonged disruption. The maintenance of this information is an ongoing process, requiring regular review and updates to reflect changes in personnel, organizational structure, and external relationships. This proactive approach ensures the BCM system remains robust and responsive to evolving circumstances. Question 22. Following a comprehensive business continuity exercise that simulated a prolonged regional power outage affecting critical IT infrastructure, the analysis of the exercise outcomes revealed several critical gaps. These included delays in activating backup power systems, insufficient communication bandwidth for remote staff, and a lack of clarity on decision-making authority for invoking alternative operational sites. To effectively integrate these findings into the organization's business continuity management system, BCMS, as per ISO 22313, 2020 guidance, which of the following actions would represent the most direct and systematic application of the lessons learned? Option A, archiving the exercise report and initiating a new risk assessment for unrelated operational areas to proactively identify future potential disruptions. Option B, updating the business continuity plans to reflect revised procedures for power system activation, enhancing communication infrastructure specifications, and clarifying roles and responsibilities in the incident response structure. Option C, conducting an immediate review of all existing business continuity policies and procedures to identify any other potential weaknesses, regardless of their relevance to the recent exercise. Option D, scheduling a follow-up training session for all employees on general emergency preparedness, without specifically addressing the identified exercise deficiencies. The correct answer is B, updating the business continuity plans to reflect revised procedures for power system activation, enhancing communication infrastructure specifications, and clarifying roles and responsibilities in the incident response structure. Explanation: the core principle of incorporating lessons learned from tests, exercises, and actual disruptions into a business continuity management system, BCMS, is to foster continuous improvement. ISO 22313, 2020 emphasizes that the outcomes of these activities should be systematically analyzed to identify strengths, weaknesses, and areas for enhancement in the organization's business continuity plans, strategies, and capabilities. This analysis directly informs the revision and refinement of the BCMS. For instance, if a tabletop exercise reveals that communication protocols during a simulated supply chain failure are inefficient, The lessons learned should lead to updated contact lists, revised communication channels, or additional training for personnel involved in crisis communications. The goal is to ensure that the BCMS remains relevant, effective, and capable of supporting the organization's resilience in the face of future incidents. This iterative process of learning and adaptation is fundamental to maintaining a robust and mature BCMS, aligning with the standard's focus on organizational learning and the enhancement of the BCMS itself. The output of this process is typically documented in reports and action plans that are then integrated into the BCMS update cycle. Question 23. A multinational logistics firm, Global Move, operating in several jurisdictions with varying data protection regulations, is reviewing its business continuity resource allocation for its critical order processing and dispatch function. This function has a strict recovery time objective, RTO, of 4 hours. During a recent business continuity exercise, it was identified that, while the primary IT infrastructure for order processing could be restored within the RTO, the specialized software used for international customs clearance, which relies on a third-party provider with limited global support, presented a significant bottleneck. Global Move's BCMS is designed to comply with ISO 22313, 2020. What is the most critical aspect of resource provision that Global Move must address for this specific critical activity, considering the identified bottleneck and the standard's guidance on resource requirements? Option A. Developing a comprehensive communication plan to manage customer expectations regarding potential delays in international dispatch due to customs clearance issues. Option B. Securing an alternative pre-approved third-party customs clearance software solution with guaranteed service level agreements, SLAs, that align with the 4-hour RTO, including provisions for data integration and personnel training. Option C. Investing in redundant physical infrastructure for the order processing and dispatch center to mitigate risks associated with facility unavailability. Option D. Increasing the number of in-house IT personnel dedicated to the order processing system to ensure faster troubleshooting during an incident. The correct answer is B. Securing an alternative pre-approved third-party customs clearance software solution with guaranteed service level agreements, SLAs, that align with the 4-hour RTO, including provisions for data integration and personnel training. Explanation: ISO 22313, 2020 under Clause 8. 3. 2. Emphasizes the identification and provision of resources necessary to establish, implement, maintain, and continually improve a business continuity management system, BCMS. This includes human resources with appropriate skills and competencies, infrastructure such as facilities and technology, and financial resources. The guidance stresses that these resources must be sufficient to support the organization's business continuity objectives and to deliver critical activities within their defined recovery time objectives, RTO. When considering the resource requirements for critical activities, an organization must not only identify the immediate needs during a disruption, but also the ongoing support and maintenance required for the BCMS itself. This involves ensuring that personnel are trained, technology is updated, and financial allocations are adequate for testing, exercising, and potential activation of business continuity plans. The process of identifying these resources is intrinsically linked to the business impact analysis, BIA, and risk assessment phases, which inform the criticality of activities and the potential impacts of their disruption. Therefore, the provision of resources must be a proactive and integrated part of the BCMS lifecycle, ensuring that the organization can effectively respond to and recover from disruptive incidents. Question 24. When evaluating an organization's business continuity management system in accordance with ISO 22313, 2020, which of the following criteria is the most fundamental determinant for classifying a business process as critical? Option A. The frequency with which the process is executed on a daily or weekly basis. Option B. The number of employees directly involved in the execution of the process. Option C. The potential for significant adverse impact on the organization's ability to meet its objectives, including stakeholder expectations and legal or regulatory obligations, should the process be disrupted. Option D. The direct financial revenue generated by the process during normal operational periods. The correct answer is C. The potential for significant adverse impact on the organization's ability to meet its objectives, including stakeholder expectations and legal or regulatory obligations, should the process be disrupted. Explanation: the core principle of identifying critical business functions and processes within ISO 22313, 2020 involves understanding their impact on the organization's ability to deliver essential products and services and meet its objectives. This identification is not solely based on financial contribution or direct customer interaction. Instead, it requires a comprehensive assessment that considers the potential consequences of disruption across various dimensions. These dimensions include the impact on stakeholders, such as customers, employees, regulators, and the wider community. Regulatory and legal obligations are paramount. Failure to meet these can lead to severe penalties, reputational damage, and even operational cessation. Operational impact encompasses the disruption to day-to-day activities and the ability to maintain essential services. Financial impact, while important, is only one facet and often a consequence of the other impacts. Therefore, a function is considered critical if its disruption would lead to significant adverse effects on the organization's reputation, legal standing, operational capacity, or its ability to fulfill its mission and objectives, irrespective of its direct revenue generation. The process involves analyzing dependencies between processes and the potential cascading effects of a disruption. Question 25. When evaluating the effectiveness of a business continuity management system, BCMS, in accordance with ISO 22313, 2020, an organization is reviewing data collected over the past 2 fiscal years to identify trends and potential areas for enhancement. The data includes metrics such as the average time to restore critical IT services following simulated disruption, the percentage of personnel who completed mandatory business continuity training, and the number of identified business continuity risks that were not adequately addressed within the stipulated timelines. Which of the following analytical approaches would most effectively leverage this data to drive meaningful improvements in the BCMS? Option A. Aggregating the number of unaddressed risks and comparing this total to the number of business continuity plan updates performed in the same period. Option B. Calculating the overall percentage of training completion across all departments and comparing it to the total number of business continuity plan exercises conducted. Option C. Benchmarking the IT service restoration time against industry averages reported in publicly available reports, irrespective of the organization's specific risk profile. Option D. Correlating the average IT service restoration time with the frequency of IT infrastructure audits to identify if audit findings directly impact recovery speed. Correct answer is D. Correlating the average IT service restoration time with the frequency of IT infrastructure audits to identify if audit findings directly impact recovery speed. Explanation: the core principle being tested here is the application of performance indicators, PI, and metrics within a business continuity management system, BCMS, as outlined in ISO 22313, 2020. When analyzing data to identify trends and areas for improvement, it's crucial to select metrics that directly reflect the effectiveness and efficiency of the BCMS components. A key aspect of ISO 22313, 2020 is the emphasis on a PDCA, Plan Do Check Act, cycle for continual improvement. Within the check phase, data collection and analysis are paramount. Performance indicators are established to measure progress against objectives and to identify deviations. For instance, the time taken to recover critical functions, the success rate of business continuity exercises, and the number of identified risks that have been mitigated are all valuable metrics. Analyzing these metrics over time allows an organization to spot recurring issues, gauge the impact of implemented improvements, and validate the overall robustness of its business continuity arrangements. The selection of appropriate metrics should be driven by the organization's specific business continuity objectives and the risks it faces. For example, if a primary objective is to minimize financial loss during a disruption, then metrics related to the duration of downtime for revenue-generating activities would be highly relevant. Conversely, focusing on metrics that are not directly linked to the BCMS ability to achieve its stated objectives would not provide actionable insights for improvement. The analysis should lead to informed decisions about resource allocation, strategy adjustments, and further development of the BCMS. Question 26. An enterprise operating in the financial services sector, subject to stringent regulatory oversight from bodies like the Financial Conduct Authority, FCA, and the Securities and Exchange Commission, SEC, regarding data integrity and operational uptime, is evaluating business continuity strategies for its core transaction processing system. The system has a critical recovery time objective RTO of 1 hour and a recovery point objective RPO of 50 minutes. Two primary strategies are under consideration. Strategy Alpha involves establishing a fully redundant, hot standby data center with real-time data replication, offering near-instantaneous failover, but incurring substantial capital and operational expenditure. Strategy Beta proposes a warm standby solution with asynchronous data replication and a more labor-intensive manual failover process, significantly reducing upfront costs, but potentially extending the recovery time beyond the RTO in a worst-case scenario and risking data loss up to the replication interval. Which approach, considering the dual imperatives of cost-effectiveness and feasibility within a highly regulated environment, best aligns with the principles outlined in ISO 22313-2020 for selecting appropriate business continuity strategies? Option A. Strategy Beta, prioritizing cost-effectiveness due to its lower capital and operational expenditure, assuming that the potential for exceeding the RTO and RPO is an acceptable risk given the regulatory penalties are less severe than the cost of implementing Strategy Alpha. Option B. A hybrid approach combining elements of both Alpha and Beta, such as active-active site for critical components and warm standby for less critical ones, to balance cost, feasibility, and resilience against regulatory demands. Option C. Strategy Alpha, as its higher cost and complexity are justified by its ability to meet stringent RTO and RPO requirements, thereby ensuring regulatory compliance and minimizing financial and reputational damage from prolonged downtime. Option D. Strategy Beta, focusing on the feasibility of manual failover processes as a primary determinant of strategy selection, with the understanding that regulatory bodies are more concerned with the existence of a plan than its absolute performance metrics in all scenarios. Correct answer is C. Strategy Alpha, as its higher cost and complexity are justified by its ability to meet stringent RTO and RPO requirements, thereby ensuring regulatory compliance and minimizing financial and reputational damage from prolonged downtime. Explanation. When selecting business continuity strategies, organizations must consider a balance between their cost-effectiveness and their feasibility within the existing operational and resource constraints. ISO 22313-2020 emphasizes that strategies should not only address the identified risks and recovery time objectives, RTO, and recovery point objectives, RPO, but also be practical to implement and sustain. This involves evaluating the total cost of ownership, including initial investment, ongoing maintenance, and potential training requirements, against the benefits derived from enhanced resilience and reduced potential losses. Feasibility also encompasses technical viability, the availability of necessary skills and infrastructure, and the alignment with the organization's overall strategic direction and regulatory obligations, such as data protection laws like GDPR or industry-specific compliance mandates. A strategy that is technically impossible to implement or prohibitively expensive without a clear return on investment, even if it theoretically offers high levels of protection, would not be considered appropriate. Therefore, the selection process involves a thorough risk assessment, impact analysis, and a pragmatic evaluation of available options against these crucial criteria to ensure the chosen strategies are both effective and sustainable for the organization. Question 27. A multinational logistics firm, Global Freight Forwarders, is implementing a comprehensive business continuity program following recent supply chain disruptions that impacted its operations, to ensure widespread understanding and preparedness across its diverse workforce. Which of the following approaches to training and awareness programs would most effectively align with the principles outlined in ISO 22313-2020 for fostering organizational resilience? Option A. Developing role-specific training modules that cover the BCMS policy, incident response procedures relevant to each function, and practical exercises for key personnel, supplemented by general awareness communications for all staff. Option B, conducting a single, organization-wide awareness seminar that provides a high-level overview of business continuity concepts and the company's commitment to resilience. Option C, focusing all training efforts on the IT department, as they are primarily responsible for system recovery and providing minimal awareness to other departments. Option D, relying solely on the availability of the BCMS documentation on the company intranet, assuming employees will proactively access and understand the relevant information. The correct answer is A, developing role-specific training modules that cover the BCMS policy, incident response procedures relevant to each function, and practical exercises for key personnel, supplemented by general awareness communications for all staff. Explanation: ISO 22313, 2020 emphasizes that training and awareness programs are fundamental to the effectiveness of a business continuity management system, BCMS. These programs must be tailored to different roles and responsibilities within an organization, ensuring that all personnel understand their part in maintaining business continuity. The guidance stresses the importance of a structured approach to developing and delivering these programs. This includes identifying the specific learning needs of various employee groups, from senior management, who need to understand strategic oversight and decision-making during disruptions, to operational staff who require practical knowledge of specific continuity procedures. The content of the training should cover the organization's business continuity policy, objectives, the BCMS framework, incident response protocols, and the use of continuity tools and technologies. Regular review and updating of training materials are also crucial to reflect changes in the BCMS, operational processes, or the threat landscape. Furthermore, the effectiveness of these programs should be evaluated through methods such as competency assessments, feedback mechanisms, and observing employee performance during exercises or actual incidents. This continuous improvement cycle ensures that the organization's resilience capabilities are consistently reinforced and adapted. Question 28. During a post-incident review following a major operational disruption caused by an unforeseen supply chain failure, a business continuity management system, BCMS, audit identified that the organization's documented business continuity strategy did not explicitly account for the cascading effects of a single critical supplier's insolvency. This led to a prolonged period of service unavailability. Considering the principles outlined in ISO 22313, 2020, how should this finding be primarily classified within the context of BCMS improvement? Option A, a nonconformity, as the BCMS failed to adequately address a recognized threat and its potential impact on business operations. Option B, an opportunity for improvement, suggesting a potential enhancement to the business continuity strategy without implying a direct failure to meet a requirement. Option C, a minor deviation, signifying a slight variance from best practices that does not compromise the overall effectiveness of the BCMS. Option D, a recommendation for a process audit, indicating a need to review the methodology used for threat assessment rather than the strategy itself. The correct answer is A, a nonconformity, as the BCMS failed to adequately address a recognized threat and its potential impact on business operations. Explanation: ISO 22313, 2020, the guidance standard for business continuity management systems, BCMS, emphasizes a proactive approach to identifying areas for enhancement. When a BCMS audit reveals that the organization's business continuity plan, BCP, did not adequately address a specific cyber attack vector that caused a significant disruption, this constitutes a nonconformity. A nonconformity is a failure to meet a requirement. In this scenario, the requirement is the effectiveness of the BCP in addressing identified threats, as stipulated by the BCMS framework. The goal is to prevent recurrence and improve resilience. Identifying this gap is crucial for improving the BCMS. Opportunities for improvement, on the other hand, are potential enhancements that are not necessarily tied to a specific nonconformity, but can lead to better performance or outcomes. For instance, if the audit found that the BCP was generally effective but could be more efficiently executed with updated communication protocols, that would be an opportunity for improvement. However, the failure to account for a specific, realized threat directly points to a deficiency in meeting the BCMS requirements for comprehensive risk assessment and planning, making it a nonconformity. The correct response focuses on addressing this specific deficiency to strengthen the BCMS. Question 29. Following a simulated cyber attack that disrupted critical data processing for a financial institution, which post-exercise action is most crucial for enhancing the business continuity management system in accordance with ISO 22313, 2020 guidance? Option A. Immediately updating all IT infrastructure configurations to prevent recurrence of the specific attack vector without further analysis of the BC process. Option B. Archiving all exercise documentation and proceeding with the next scheduled exercise without incorporating any findings from the recent simulation. Option C. Focusing solely on the technical recovery steps executed, disregarding the communication and coordination aspects during the simulated incident. Option D. Conducting a comprehensive debriefing session with all involved personnel to document observed performance, identify deviations from the plan, and capture immediate improvement suggestions. The correct answer is D. Conducting a comprehensive debriefing session with all involved personnel to document observed performance, identify deviations from the plan, and capture immediate improvement suggestions. Explanation. The core principle of simulating disruption scenarios within a business continuity management system, BCMS, is to test the effectiveness of the documented business continuity plans, BCP, and the readiness of the response teams. ISO 22313, 2020 emphasizes that these exercises should be designed to reflect realistic threats and impacts identified during the risk assessment and business impact analysis, BIA. A critical aspect of this process is the debriefing and review phase, where lessons learned are captured and used to improve the BCMS. This involves evaluating the performance of personnel, the adequacy of resources, the accuracy of assumptions made in the BCP, and the overall effectiveness of the incident response and recovery procedures. The objective is not merely to conduct an exercise, but to derive actionable insights that lead to tangible enhancements in the organization's resilience. This iterative improvement cycle is fundamental to maintaining a robust and effective BCMS that can withstand actual disruptions. Without a thorough post-exercise analysis and subsequent plan updates, the simulation loses its primary value in strengthening the organization's ability to continue critical operations. Question 30. When implementing a business continuity management system in accordance with ISO 22313, 2020, and specifically focusing on the establishment of communication channels for internal and external stakeholders during a crisis, which of the following represents the most critical factor for ensuring the ultimate effectiveness and reliability of these channels? Option A. The proactive engagement with external regulatory bodies to pre-approve the communication methodologies to be employed during an incident. Option B. The comprehensive documentation of all potential communication channels, including their technical specifications and ownership, within the business continuity plan. Option C. The development of a sophisticated multi-language communication matrix to cater to the diverse linguistic needs of all potential global stakeholders. Option D. The systematic and regular testing of all established communication channels and associated procedures through realistic simulations. The correct answer is D. The systematic and regular testing of all established communication channels and associated procedures through realistic simulations. Explanation. The establishment of communication channels for business continuity management requires careful consideration of various factors to ensure effectiveness during disruptions. ISO 22313, 2020 emphasizes that these channels must be reliable, accessible, and capable of reaching identified stakeholders promptly. This involves defining primary and alternative communication methods, ensuring that the content of communications is appropriate for the audience and the situation, and establishing protocols for two-way communication. Furthermore, the standard highlights the importance of testing these channels regularly to confirm their functionality and the readiness of personnel to use them. And considering the most crucial element for ensuring the effectiveness of these established channels, the focus shifts to the practical validation of their operational capability. While having a diverse range of channels and clear content is vital, the ultimate measure of success lies in whether these channels can actually be used to transmit and receive information when needed. This is achieved through rigorous testing and exercises that simulate real-world disruption scenarios. Such validation confirms that the technology works, the procedures are understood, and the personnel are trained, thereby ensuring that the communication plan is not merely theoretical but a robust operational tool. This practical demonstration of functionality is paramount for the overall resilience of the organization's response.